The horse is actually the ultimate guru or teacher for enlightenment, and it just comes from their presence.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Reinforce the Horse. Today we are here with Scarlet Ravin, and as a spiritual catalyst for evolution, Scarlet has been traveling the world for over 20 years, studying with many different teachers from all walks of life. Her inner drive to enlightenment has shed light on many topics, helping others heal themselves and find harmony in their life. As an international best-selling author and founder of White Fox Medicinals, Scarlet now resides on an expansive horse ranch, guiding others through earth medicine, Filled Alchemical Formulas, and teaching via an online school, Curandera Eyes. Scarlet works with medicine horses that have special needs or have been long forgotten due to their deep trauma. These horses can unlock much healing for humanity. Her mission is to show the world the importance of these horses with her newly launching book, Medicine Horse Speaks. Her way of moving through this world is a dance between old shamanic Curandera ways and new light from the stars coming into our earth at this time. Scarlet, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited.
It's so wonderful to have you. We have a lot to uncover here. And so let's start by asking where your horsemanship journey began.
I think it came with my soul. I was born into like a more city vibe family, and then as soon as I could speak, I was asking for horses and stuffed horses, and I didn't want any like human figurines like Barbies. I just wanted toy ponies, and then started doing like the pony rides where they strap you in and you walk in a circle around age 2. And then I begged and begged and begged to have horse lessons, but I developed really slowly. So like when I was 9 years old, I only weighed 40 pounds. And so when I think I was about 4, and I was giving my mom just a really hard time about pony lessons and riding. And we were in Detroit at that time, and she took me to a local stables where they did like hunter jumper showing. And the trainer was like, she's far too small. She's going to get injured. Like, you have to wait till she's double her size or something. And I just said, like, just give me a chance. Like, watch me. Just watch me. Like, you can't say no unless you watch me first. That's just not fair. And they were like, well, that's true. So they only had at the time, like a pretty big thoroughbred. They didn't have any ponies on site. So she put me on this thoroughbred. And I walked around and I asked it to trot, and she was like, I will take her on as a student. I'm actually extremely impressed. This is cool. So from that point on, I did hunter jumper training until I was about 13. And do you want me to keep going, or should I? 'Cause I should continue. Okay. I think part of my spiritual journey with horses was they're always honest, kind, and loving. And so like as a little girl in this world, cats and horses and dogs were the only beings that I thought were like that. Like humans would lie. And I had a great family, but parents lie to children to get their point across or to teach a lesson, and kids know. So I didn't feel like authentic honesty from anyone but horses. And like the authentic honesty part was safety and true love to me. So like a moth to a flame, I'm just drawn to plants, animals, because they give off this resonance of purity and love. And that's all I wanted to feel while I was on earth. So I became horse obsessed. I think a lot of people know what that entails, where like all you do is think about horses. I thought I was a horse forever. I would gallop around on all fours. I could jump up to like 3 feet. I mean, I was like really remarkable as a horse human. I would eat like shredded carrots out of the bowl, and I would fill the bathroom sink up with water and put my head in and drink it like I was a horse in a bucket. Like my life was just, that's all I knew was horses. So I got my heart broken. I had this, if you're doing the jumpers, or like if you're wanting to show on an elite level, which just happened to be where I was put. There wasn't a lot of thought into that. I don't think my parents were just like, we don't know what to do. And that's what they found. And so that's the journey I took. But we didn't have the kind of money where like we could import $100,000 German warm blood to show. But that was the level of competition that I was facing. So my trainers proposed that we get, at age 11, that we get a totally untrained 2-year-old for 10 grand, really high fancy bloodline, so that I could train it myself and then compete with the other girls in the barn. So I learned how to train my first pony at 11 with my trainer, and it was just remarkable. I mean, her and I was only attracted to semi-psychotic horses. Like my whole journey, I would watch these girls come in with these $100,000 warm bloods, and they were push button. There was no mystery to them. You knew exactly what they were going to do. And I found it so boring. So I loved having horses where like, you didn't know if they were going to buck that day, or you didn't know if you just didn't know what was going to happen. And that level of like excitement was a huge part of me too, because I acted the same way. It was just very wild. And this pony that I had, Jackie, she was partially insane. I mean, you know, like there's some horses where you're like, they're very grounded, they're even keeled, you can kind of count on them. And then there's some horses where you're like, they're pretty much always unpredictable and they like to play. And she was in that realm. And so I got her trained up, and we actually were number 1 in the state of Colorado in 1996 in our division. And then the trainers, because I started growing finally, the trainers were like, if you want to keep competing and you want to start, like, because I was thinking Olympics, and they're like, if you're really on that track, you have to sell her and get a horse now. And I didn't know what that would mean, but as soon as she was out of my life, my soul broke. And that was my first experience. Like, part of the project I'm doing now is healing part of my soul that is still wounded from that. I still get emotional talking about it, but her and I were one soul, and we could do anything together. And then to have that be removed from my life for competition, I didn't have the mental like acuity to know what was going on. I was like 13. But I could feel what was going on. And then I just went to drugs and alcohol, and I actually became a drug addict and totally dropped out of the horse world, which then propelled me on my, healing journey, which also had a huge benefit to me. And I was still around horses while I was in and out of like being a crazy person. I worked at horse rescues, and I would train horse rescues for people or horses at rescues for nonprofits for free, just so I could be around horses. I was only in college for like 3 weeks, but I did join the equestrian team for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And stuff like that. So like I always found my way around them. Now I'm 42 and I own my own horse ranch, and this was my dream since I was 2 years old. So I'm like living in heaven now.
That's fascinating. I want to hear more about that. But before we get into it, was this horse or this pony, Jackie, she was your first one that you were training? She was the first.
Yeah. So she wasn't my first pony. I had Splish Splash before her. But she was the first pony I ever like trained.
With your time with her, did you had mentioned that you had a deep spiritual connection at the time that you spent with her. Did you consciously know that it was a spiritual connection at that time, or was that only evident to you later in life?
I think the evident, it was the 2020, right? The evident was later in life. I didn't even know the word spiritual at 13. I didn't have that in my house. So, I wasn't aware. I mean, my mom is a very spiritual being, but I wasn't aware of concepts, or like what that would feel like if I embodied a spiritual concept. But now looking back, I was like,
part of you. Wow.
Yeah, she still is. I spent years trying to find her, so I could buy her back. I mean, at this point, she's well into her 30s, so who knows? Yeah, but it's interesting because I've been around probably at this point thousands of horses, and it's just this thing where I look into their eye and I'm like, oh shit, you're a part of my soul.
Mm.
It's not with every horse. It's like with one and that, it's a very rare experience for me to have that.
Wow.
But her and I, that was the first time I had that was with her.
Beautiful.
So she was like my first love.
I get that. I've got a Mustang. That's that for me. But yeah, tell us more about your ranch that you have, and the horses that you've helped throughout this journey.
Yeah, so I think I got a massive gift after I had finished traveling and like studying with all these different gurus. I landed in Northern California first, and I was working as a bartender to kind of pay my way. And someone came up to the bar and they were like, "Oh, I'm trying to sell this horse." And I'm like, "Well, I could sell it for you. I can train her, I can ride her, I can sell it to you, like $45 a ride. I'll do it." She's like, "Done." So I went out to meet her one day, and this was the first horse I ever owned as an adult. And I just saw her eyes through the bars in the back of the barn, and I knew it was the same thing as Jackie. I was like, oh shit, that's my horse. And this woman was asking 10 grand for her because of her bloodline. She's a purebred thoroughbred. Everyone's a granddaughter of Secretariat, but so is she. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. So I was showing her to clients, but she was bucking me off every time a client was there. Like, we had this sole purpose to be together, and she did crazy shit whenever someone came to look at her to buy, to the point where the woman actually fired me. And the last day that I was there, when I came to ride, she was like, "No, I don't want you to do this today. There's something weird happens every time you ride her to show her to a client." And then I saw her give her ace. And I was like, oh shit, she's going to drug this mare and then show her to a 14-year-old girl. There's such an underbelly to the horse industry. And then I asked her, I said, "Were you giving her ace like every time before I came? Is this a regular, like, have I ever been around this horse not drugged?" And she said, "No." And I was like, "That's an issue for me." And she said, "Well, I don't know. This is my horse. It doesn't matter what you think." And I sat in my car and I watched the girl, the girl's trainer rode. Her name's Denali. She's on this ranch now. That's why I'm telling you the story. So Denali was drugged and being shown to this girl, and they were trying to jump her over fences, and she was running through the fences. That's how much ace they gave her. And so when that went really shitty, and this woman came back up the hill, I was like, "I'll give you $2,000 cash right now to take her off your hands." And she said, "Fine, but you have to pick her up tomorrow, and I want the cash tomorrow." And then I was like, oh shit, I don't have any money. And I also don't have any money to like take care of her. I'm like barely getting by as a bartender. But I had a boyfriend who had money, and I was like, "Babe," he was like, "Yeah, we're doing this. We're saving this horse." So I saved her, and I didn't know what I got, right? Because I had only known a drugged version of her. And she's the light of my life. But after I got her, that's when I got serious about buying this ranch. I was like, "This is it. You're my love. You're my love for the rest of my life. I'm just going to care for you. I'm going to buy us the biggest ranch so we can live together on the same land and sleep together." And that's all I thought or cared about for the next 8 years. And she turned out to be extremely special needs. She has vision issues, so she can't see right in front of you. She's seriously injured, 5 people, hospitalized 5 people. And she, and that's because her sensitivity is through the roof. So if it's windy and you're around her, the possibility of you being injured is like 10 out of 10. You just can't be around her when it's windy. There's certain conditions she cannot emotionally sustain or handle and still be safe in her body. And because of that, she's constantly wrapped. She's always hurting her legs. There's just so much stuff, right? And she's the love of my life. So that's how this ranch got started, was I got her, and then I was like, "I have to live with you." And then when everything happened in 2020, that was like the wake-up call of get out of California. And so we left California, and I sold my house there. thought I was going to be super rich, like buying a ranch in the Midwest. It turned out that like I really wasn't. So I wanted to live in Southern Colorado close to my family. I wasn't able to afford a property at that time there. So I bought something in northern New Mexico where it's like, as soon as you cross the border, the prices go down by like half. And I bought this incredible like 23-acre horse ranch with this big custom home. And there was one horse barn here when I started, but now there's 2 horse barns, and there's, 2 round pens, and there's a riding arena. I built everything myself because there's no one around here to help with do anything. So I can build fences like crazy. And then because Denali, the move, we left during a fire evacuation, October 2020. She didn't get to say goodbye to any of her friends. And so when we got to Colorado, initially, I boarded her at Colorado and I was living out of an Airbnb. She was really mentally damaged from the fires and then the move and then not knowing anyone. And she was so dangerous at that point. So I bought her a 6-month-old little dun quarter horse baby.
Oh, a little baby.
Who is like, her name is Goosey, and she's such a light. She's such an angel, but she's also she's one horse who's like, no, you'll never ride me. I will like fight you to the death. You will never ride me. And I totally respect her on that. But I bought her to keep Denali company. And then, once you have all this acreage, I was like, how many horses can I fit on here in a good way, And then I got, it was like the middle of the winter, and I wanted 4 horses in my head. I was like, I got 2 barns. I want 2 horses in each barn. And I want a horse. After Goosey wouldn't let me ride her, I was like, I want a horse that I can ride. Because Denali's a huge, she's just a doll just to be around. And we have spa days. I got a 7-month-old Ford baby, like a Ford horse. I've never had a Ford horse. But some woman was in the middle of a divorce and needed like $1,500 in lawyer fees, and I got a Ford for $1,500. So that was a score. And then my 4th horse is Chico, who's currently at a hospital down south, 2 hours south from us. But he was in a kill lot, and this incredible woman, Erin King, rescued him. And Chico's 9 now, so she raised him. But Chico is a lot like Denali, where like tactile sensitivity issues. He's not unsafe like Denali, but you can't ride him. You can't move quickly around him. He has vision issues. He walks into things that are black. So I don't know what that means, but he can't see shadows. And you just can't really touch him that much. His nerves are so close to his skin that it makes him really uncomfortable. So I pet him like 2 feet away from him, and he loves that. But when you start getting close, he's just like overwhelmed by what feels like pressure to him. But he's the one who woke me up to the Medicine Horse Speaks book because of all of these surgeries. And when I didn't have the money. Now, I mean, we're going into like 15 grand now, and I've paid half of it, and we're doing a GoFundMe. That all being said, yeah, go ahead.
Can you tell us more about that really piqued my interest, the fact that you pet him about 2 feet away? Because I think a lot of people I know a lot of people, when they approach a horse, it's just the magnitude and the size of the body of the horse, and they think like, I'm just gonna go up to this horse and like rub it real hard and smack it on the neck, but it's been my experience that horses are much more sensitive physically than we humans are. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I would agree with your statement. And then the horses that don't seem sensitive, I don't think their souls are in their body anymore. I think they've been turned into robots for performance goals. But I think you're right. It's like there's sensitivity. So I had this experience where I got like a session from a healer. And she did all this work on me. And then I went right out to the barn to see Denali. And at that point, I was riding Denali. We would just walk around bridleless, but I would sit on her back and she would just walk around. and the wind picked up. And all of a sudden, it was like I was feeling what she was experiencing in her body. And it felt like I was being, I want to think of a really strong word. I was completely overwhelmed. It was like energy was coming at me from all directions. Nothing was stable. My nervous system went into fight, flight, or freeze. I felt very like ungrounded and not scared, but just like completely bombarded with too many sensations at once. And I was like, oh, I just got a little window into like how she experiences the world. And that's why if I give her bran, she gets violent and she doesn't see me as good and she can actually run over me. But if I feed her this other certain diet, she's a lot safer. And there's a lot of people in the horse world that would go right and be like, no, you just haven't trained her. You're just not the alpha yet. And I'm like, that's the whole point of the book Medicine Horse Speaks, is to me, there's no alpha in the relationship. If you earn trust in a friendship, these horses will do anything for you, no matter what their disability or sensitivity is. Like, I don't ever need to use pressure to get the horses to do what I want to do. So I just started learning to really back off of them a lot. And then I was getting a lot better results. So if you think of like people, I don't know if you've ever heard the term HSPs, but the highly sensitive people, where they're not autistic, but they're completely overwhelmed in crowds. They do much better alone. They don't like to talk to more than one person at a time. And they're actually like, if you were to cut their skin open, you would see that their nerves are right under the top layer of their skin. Whereas humans that aren't HSPs, their nerves are way deeper embedded. So there's actually a physical difference between how certain people are built. And because the nerves are so close to the skin, they can't handle a lot of stuff like other people can. They're not dense enough to be able to stay, properly mentally focused and emotionally stable and move through the world. And there's HSP horses.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. I definitely have heard of that. And I actually consider myself, at least in the past, highly sensitive on a number of different occasions and reasons. And it actually stemmed from like even birth as a child. And then we create these situations through life to kind of, what I believe anyway, to teach us these things about ourselves so that we can ultimately rise above and through that, those situations. And I mean, taking just like basic military service and going to war, but we're taught in those sorts of environments to grow a thicker skin, like totally discounting sensitivities and shutting it down. And in a lot of ways, it's like that's what's happening with the horses. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but yeah, it rings a bell for me. And knowing that these horses are such like large animals, and we look at them based on their physicality rather than what is ultimately going on inside. That's one reason why I chose really not to ride my horse often, because I can actually feel him suggesting, and he does it. It's suggestive. It's like, no, I'm not comfortable with that. And I would argue that's not a training issue. It might be a medical issue. It might be something that is causing him discomfort that I don't know about. But at the end of the day, he doesn't feel it. And I feel that,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really easy to feel. I mean, like Nola, when I go out into the pasture, she's the little baby Ford. She's almost 3 now. So I'm starting to sit on her back and just walk in a little circle and get her used to steering. And when I go out there with her little makeshift, hackamore, she walks up to me and puts her nose in the hackamore, right? But if I were to go up to Goosey with that, she would pin her ears and spin her ass in my face. So there's like really clear, she knows what's coming. There's just really clear, like what you said, you can sense it. And that being said, that sensing part, it's so crucial, and it's completely ignored and stepped upon in normal societal programs. They start us in school systems, because I'm a super highly sensitive person, and I couldn't really go through school because I couldn't handle sounds. And I'm not stupid. Like, there was nothing wrong with my cognitive abilities. But if you put me in a class with 30 kids and some kids are tapping their pencil and the teacher's making the chalk sound on the board, and I can hear like people walking down the hall, like, I'm going insane in my body. I am so overstimulated. And so I wasn't able to really, I don't know how I got a diploma, because I didn't attend school very often. Once I started, and that's also why I started doing drugs, was like, how can I move through this world without feeling constant overwhelm and pain every day, just from what other people are like regular sounds? That's a regular sound. Why are you freaking out? Well, it's not to me. I'm experiencing the world differently than other people. And I think like what you said, if that rings a bell for you, to me, that's we have a really special gift with horses. Because horses embody, like, if anyone's on a spiritual journey, what are they seeking? They're seeking like permanent joy and bliss, right? They don't want to feel pain anymore. They want that money. They want their dream life. They want joy and bliss. That's all they want to feel. And they don't want this other contrast. And horses know exactly how to stay in that joy, bliss, heaven on earth embodiment. If the humans allow them to show them that. Like, we have to give them the bandwidth and the space for them to show us that. But once we do, that vibrational frequency is offered to us at an endless, it's an endless offering that they give us. So like, because I traveled the world for 20 years and I've whirled with whirling dervishes. I've sat with Zen monks. Like, I did everything. And I can walk out into my pasture while the horses are just grazing, and I can sit there and breathe. And the level of like pure bliss that I feel never compares to what I was able to achieve with all those other modalities. So to me, the horse is actually the ultimate guru or teacher for enlightenment. And it just comes from their presence. And I think like humans love to complicate things, and they really can't stand it when things are super simple and they have nothing to do. So it's just getting over that little hurdle. But if you can get over the hurdle of there's nothing to do and you just need to sit and breathe and stay present with the horse, and then you can enter into these higher states of enlightenment through that pathway, I think that's remarkable. And it's because of those sensitivities that they have that they can do that.
They're so incredibly powerful, and I resonate with that so much. I mean, we spend the majority of our time with our horses, either sitting in the paddock and just like kind of being a part of the herd. We'll pick hay for them from the hay net, or just or we're meditating with them. Like, and they're yoga masters. Sometimes all three of them will lay down, and sometimes our one mare Grace, she's a wild Mustang, and she's like the most spiritual of them all. She's the most sensitive of them all. This mare has had a lot of trauma that we're slowly and gently helping her overcome. But the truth of the matter is, she's just like in this spiritual realm that I really think it surpasses even where we are, up until we get to this like energetic plane, and then she meets us there, and it's like, hey, how's it going? This is nice. I'm gonna lay down, and then the other two will usually follow suit. But it's such interesting to hear you say you've traveled for over 20 years, done pretty much all of it, and still you're led back to horses, this powerful, energetic being that just so much magic and power in that. So you said a thing a little earlier about Chico opening your eyes to the Medicine Horse Speaks book that you're working on crafting. Can you tell us a little bit more about how he helped you realize that this is going to become a thing?
Yeah. So Aaron basically was like, I can't just keep feeding this horse if he's not going to be in part of the lesson program. And she knew that I liked him because Denali and him used to live next to each other. And I said, well, if we can do a fundraiser and pay the shipping fees for him to get from California to my ranch in New Mexico, I will 100%, this will be his home for life. And I will take care of him no matter what. And so we did a GoFundMe, and we got him to the ranch. And I'll be totally honest, like initially, and I think it was just my bandwidth, but I had so much work to do to upgrade this ranch to how I wanted it. Like, we have a 24 by 48 greenhouse now. I had to build my own chicken coop. I have over like 30,000 feet of fencing that I did. And I was not complete with all my projects when he came. And initially he was very challenging. So like, I had this rhythm with my horses, right? And then he shows up and I can't catch him. I can't blanket him. I can't do his feet. He's just so traumatized from the move. So I was just like, okay, we're just going to have to get through it. And it's going to take a lot of extra patience on my part. And I will fully admit I had a lot of days of frustration because I didn't feel that bond with him. And I was like going through the motions of caring for him, but I was like, why isn't this bond forming? It's so weird. And I guess my whole life is like that. My whole life is like a series of mysterious spiritual experiences that then end up explaining why I have these blocks. But I was like, my plan was like, okay, I'm going to give him 6 months where we're just going to chill. And I'm just going to I left a halter on him so that I could catch him, bring him in, because we have mountain lions. So I bring the horses in at night and put them in like half-acre little pens. So they can't go out to the woods. And then the foot thing, like it was just patience. We just did 1 foot a week over and over again, right? And then for some reason, I didn't have Nola yet. Or I had Nola. I don't remember the order I got them in. For some reason, I went down to the horse rescue. Like, you know how people like to shop for clothes or whatever? Well, like, I just constantly shop for horses. I'm always online, like, looking. I'm just obsessed. That's all I think about. So I think I saw a horse I liked at the horse rescue in Santa Fe, and I went down there to see this baby. It was like, oh, yeah, because Goosey couldn't ride, and I didn't have Nola yet, and I still wanted to train a horse to ride. So I went down there to go find a baby I could rescue to train to ride. And when I saw them in person, I was just like, no, none of these are right. I could just feel it. I didn't have a connection. And she's like, there is one horse that's super, super difficult and has been extremely traumatized. Do you want to see him? And I was like, why does that turn me on? I don't know why that turns me on. But I was like, yeah, you're talking my language. So she leads me over to this horse's pen, and he's traumatized. So he's furthest away from us, right? He doesn't want to be near any humans. And I look into his eyes, and all of a sudden I'm like tears streaming and I'm crying. And I'm just he has so many medicinal gifts in him. And he was offering me a healing, and he was opening my heart to Chico. And I stood there and I just cried for a few minutes, and the trainers are like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, like I have a connection to this horse, and he's helping me have a connection to my other horse. He's showing me what I'm not seeing in Chico. He's opening me to what his gifts are too. And I was like, I want him. 100% I want him. And then when I got back up here, Chico and I were bonded. So whatever happened there had a huge effect on my relationship with Chico. This all being said, he comes down with this sinus thing, and I was able to pay for his initial surgery myself, but it put me like behind on some bills. It took like every cent of my savings to get him through it. And sometimes with the sinuses, you need multiple surgeries, unfortunately. So his symptoms all come back like 6 weeks later, and the surgeon's like, you have to come back down. And I was like, I don't have the money. I'm not losing my house and my business over this. Like, we have to either postpone or I have to do a fundraiser, but like, I don't have another $5,000 just to like hand over for this. And And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do a GoFundMe, but I feel really shameful around it. I felt shameful around it, like, because I should have got Chico on insurance. All my horses should be on insurance. If I can't afford a $15,000 surgery, then my horses have to be insured. So I was really down on myself for making that poor of a decision. So I got all the horses insured, and that would stop the bleeding, right? The financial bleeding if anything else happened in the future. And then I did the GoFundMe. And when I started the GoFundMe, there's a few people really close to me in my life that were like, why are you spending all this money on a horse you can't even ride? And I looked at them and I was like, why are you judging the value of life? Why is it so easy for you and so okay for you to say, that horse's life, I'm so passionate about this. That horse's life is valuable because it can accomplish my equestrian goals, but this horse that you can barely touch his life isn't valuable. Like, why is that okay in your brain? Why are you thinking like that? Where did that come from? I was like, this has to be corrected globally, right? Because that's how I am. I'm like, there has to be more like you that think I'm crazy for doing this. We have to educate you. Y'all have to be educated. So I was like, I'm writing a book about this, because these horses like Chico and the other one down at the rescue, like Bowie, all of Bowie's joints are like huge, right? He's just arthritic to heck. And you could see the scars around his neck from where they choked him out with like ropes. He's been through the ringer. Who's going to walk by that horse and say that horse has value? I am. Right? Because I know he has medicinal gifts, and I know that if someone else has been traumatized, beaten, forgotten, and not seen for their value, and they get in the presence of Bowie and that person are going to heal together. And I know these things, because I've experienced them, and I know that they're real, and I've had people come on my ranch and experience them in front of my face. So all of this is a real reality. And that's what sparked the passion, is like, I want to educate people that, like, if a horse can't accomplish your equestrian goals, don't fucking sell it. Go into a different relationship value with it. Like, start learning about the spiritual essence that horse has to give you. Drop your goals and your hard ass vision for that blue ribbon and just be present and see what else the horse can offer you.
I think what we're getting at is, it's really, sadly, it's not about the horse. It's about broke humanity. I mean, we're just broken as humans and so blatantly disconnected from the earth and everything that it encompasses. I mean, yeah, we're on a podcast talking about horses, but I think this ripple effect is like worldwide. It brings to mind, like, last year, toward the end of the year, I went to India for my first trip to India up in the Himalayas. And I did a pilgrimage yatra out there. And they had hundreds, if not thousands, of pack mules that they were using to pack people up this 18-kilometer trek to the very spiritual sacred place called Kedarnath, up in the Himalayas. And so there's a lot of juxtaposition there for me, and like what was going on in my mind, heart, body, soul. But simply put, I mean, we're in one of the most, if not the most spiritual place in the world, calling the Himalayas, whether on the Chinese side, Indian side, or whatever. And these people, these handlers, are literally abusing and beating these mules so that they can trek 2, 3, even 4 times a day to get people like a beeline up to this sacred temple up at the top of the mountain. And like going back to the highly sensitive person aspect, when I signed up to go to the Himalayas, I thought it was going to be this peaceful, serene, beautiful environment, which it was in some respects. But, having faced that situation of these equines being totally demolished just for people to get up to check a box, essentially. And I mean no disrespect to the Indian people and that process, but what I'm getting at is that, hundreds and thousands of years ago when they made that trek or when that pilgrimage began, it was on foot. And if you couldn't make it with your two legs and you can have somebody carry you, perhaps, like a human being carry you, you probably weren't going to go. And so we're so disconnected from like what makes a human a human. So how are we even able to like acknowledge, a horse who, so many people I see like just I see it on discussion boards. I see it on, Facebook posts. It's like this horse is done because it can't run this particular pace around barrels. And like, I'm going to go ahead and get another horse. So this one's up for grabs. Who wants it? And then the number of rescues that we've talked to and the people is like, there's not enough space for horses, like, so I'm totally empathizing with you and your sentiments on the idea of these horses having value, much more than just an equestrian goal of sport.
Yeah, that's such a cool story, man. Wow, the Himalayas are super powerful. I feel like it should be like if you can't walk up there, then you can't go, period. Because if a donkey or a mule can, you can. Just little things like that. Instant gratification has been one of the biggest downfalls of our society as technology has expanded. Like a lot of the things on my ranch, I make them harder for myself on purpose. Like to if I were to continually make myself comfortable every day, it would be idiocracy script being written through my life. Then that's what people are, they're valuing. A lot of people are valuing, like, if I can just sit by my laptop all day and order food in, I won. But that's when you get the people that don't have the mental focus to get up the mountain in the Himalayas. That's when you don't have these brave, strong individual humans that can stand up for what's right and just say like, no, that's not okay. Like, and I also say that really lightly because I also don't want to sound like I know what's best for everyone. And I had my own journey through the equestrian realization of horses. And everyone has to have the space to have their own journey. And I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I just want to be an offering of information to help expand people to maybe act in a way that's a higher resonance, to have their actions match fields of love and devotion. And there's no other animal that people grow out of and just give away. Like, it's like, oh, my daughter's 12 now. Let's get rid of this little wiener dog and get her a German Shepherd because she likes to run track now. People don't do that. They do that with horses all the time. And supposedly you have to have this super spiritual connection with horses in order to accomplish your equestrian goals. So I just don't understand the mentality that is pushed in the equestrian industry. Like, how can you take so much from a living being and then discard it? I can't understand why that's okay for so many people. And my prayer is that once this book hits the shelves is that people read it and they're like, oh my God, I'm missing out on so many opportunities with my beloved horse. Because not equestrian goals can be important. Sure, that can be beautiful. And spiritual evolution is also super crucial. And so you're giving away like the most intelligent spiritual teacher that you've ever had in your life. And you're giving it away because you can't see that value. And I want this book to show people that value. Is like, just think about it.
think about how it would feel if you had a different connection with this horse. Think about, whatever. Just start asking yourself questions.
Such a powerful way of viewing this whole the horses, and I that resonates so much. So we've had 4 horses. Currently we have 3. We lost our first horse, Mocha, due to a hip fracture in 2021, and this mare, she wonderful horse, registered AQHA, could have done anything. She was our first horse, and she was the one that taught us how to ride alongside of her her trainer, who was very, typical natural horsemanship style. And Mocha, while we did the best we did the best we could with her. It wasn't until after her death that we noticed how much we could be doing better for our horses. And it was so the moments leading up to after Mocha passing away, we had, now we still have Cody. That's primarily my dad's Bashkir curly gelding. And I don't think I could ever forget the day after we put Mocha down. We used to ride Mocha and Cody from our place to a half mile down the road to 2 other horses who were pasture puffs. They were owned by a wheelchair bound man, and these horses were so spiritual, so powerful, and they were friends with our horses. And Cody walked up to them and bowed his head. These horses had this whole ceremony for Mocha, who was now in spirit. And I think that was a major shift for me, seeing wow, they're more than just a ride. And I've always had this sort of I've loved animals my entire life, but they're more than just a ride. So that led to getting our first Mustang, Willow. This is my heart horse, my best friend. She does everything with and for me, and we're just we're a team. But she knows just as well as I do, hey, if I ask you to say ride, you don't have to let me on. Or if I ask you to lay down, you don't have to lay down. We can. And she's just she's taught me more about life than I think a school curriculum could have ever taught. And to say they're just such incredibly powerful beings. I don't know where I'm going with that, but resonating.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm so glad you guys have had those experiences. Yeah, imagine if you raised a child instead of in the school system, but you taught them all of these incredible skills. Imagine what this world would look like. It would look totally different if children were allowed. And you don't even have to teach children anything. You just have to not indoctrinate them. You have to let them develop naturally, because they're naturally in these higher states anyway. But
isn't there a Chinese, I think it's Chinese parable that says something like, give me a child, in 7 years I'll give you a man.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it alludes to that sort of way, because you're taught, and I think science has brought that out. I've heard other people talk about it. I'm not an expert on any of that stuff, but I think our modern day science is sort of determined, the first 7 years of a human being's life is so instrumental to, and it doesn't really require the rote memorization and academics that we typically force feed children these days. And which is kind of a good segue into, you mentioned plant medicine. We've talked a bit about highly sensitive people, kind of tilted toward perhaps Asperger's or even autism sort of stuff, which, as I understand it, there's not even a firm definition of what those things actually are, even in the medical community. And in fact, I think we have Rupert Isaacson coming on not too long to talk about his journey in that way with his son. But what is your take? Coming from being highly sensitive person through it sounds like quite of a journey. And you mentioned, drugs and stuff like that. If you can share some of that with us, and I know that might be a touchy subject, but yeah,
No,
I'd love to hear more about your story in that way.
Yeah, I'm pretty far from it all now, the heavy emotions of it. But I think when humans start to label things and want to box it in, like, okay, so they're autistic, they have Asperger's, they have ADHD, what happens is it just removes like the soul uniqueness of that person and it shoves them into a category. I don't think that, and then it also comes with the connotation of, oh, that person's special, right? Like they have different needs than the rest of us. I think that we're all perfect just as we are. And there's really no such thing as special needs. It's just that humanity is really bad at being cool with mystery. And when someone comes into the world and they see and feel differently than the bulk of the masses, then there's this, there's something that the masses can't understand. And then the masses want to label it and they want to box it and they want to make sure they can fix it and turn it back into the mainstream. Except for those fringe beings are here to actually help, in my view, we're here to help the whole collective consciousness evolve. We won't evolve if we're all in the same mainstream. I don't want to call it sheep in a bad way, but if you're just following the person in front of you and you haven't developed your own uniqueness, then what are you actually offering in terms of your soul directly to society? If you're just kind of parroting programs and like following, the norm, there's not going to be a lot of unique ripples. But if you cannot physically fit into the norm because of genuine things like autism, which is really loud, like you cannot shove an autistic person into the norm and they won't thrive. So my chapter 2 in Medicine Horse Speaks is like this vision I had on plant medicine. So we can tie that in too. And I was sitting and meditating, and I do mushrooms sometimes and just other things to kind of get more clarity. And I was just sitting and I was breathing and I was on mushrooms. And I had this vision of how Creator made the horses, which mirrored how humanity has, because there's horses that no matter what you do, you're never going to be able to get it to bend to your goal. And if you keep trying, then you're going into someone's going to get hurt. Either the horse is going to kill itself or it's going to injure the human. So there are horses that will mold, like the mainstream humanity, they will mold into what you want. There's horses like that. There's other horses, which I call the medicine horses. You cannot mold them into anything unless you have a death wish. Like you're not going to get them to do what you want to do. And that's the same comparison to the autistic or the HSP or whatever ADHD people. And so I think in the global societal programming, people see it as either you can conform or you can't conform. And if you can't conform, then you're an issue or you're special. And I see it flipped. Like if you can't conform, then you're here to create a new world. You're literally physically built to create an entirely new world. And that's called evolution. And that's why we're on planet Earth. I don't think labeling it. And I kind of backed out of calling myself an HSP. And I was like trying to join HSP groups, but what I found was everyone was like victimizing themselves. I am an HSP, so like I can't handle groups and like poor me, and I just have to sit at home all day. It's like if you don't see that as a gift, then you miss the boat, man. Like you're missing the boat right now. And I think that's what those labels do for people is they give, okay, well, now I'm special because now I'm autistic. So I don't have to try and move beyond or figure out. So I think these labels can be kind of dangerous where they give people this safety net of not having to figure out why they're like that. So if you figure out why you're like that, and then not only that, but then you have to speak your needs. How hard is that for people? That's extremely challenging for people. And then you have to say no to people. That's also extremely hard for a lot of people. And then you have to live in a way that's literally not shown by anyone else. So you're out, like I'm just using myself as an example,
But what I started to do out here was I was like, what do I actually want? What do I actually need? Because my whole life was just making sure the people around me were okay. And like when it came to family and gatherings, it's like our family's having a gathering. Well, I don't like being around 20 people. I can't do it without having 3 or 4 days post gathering of just total emotional meltdown. That's how I'm built. And like, is it hard for me to explain that to people? Yeah, it sucks. It sucks to say no. It sucks to say, I don't feel like going through a 4-day emotional flip out. I don't want to come to this gathering. It has nothing to do with you. And then everyone on the other side is like, oh, we miss you. This makes us so sad. I don't know why I was built like this, but I deserve every opportunity to speak what I need and have that be valued, just as saying yes to the party is valued. Like they both have the same value.
Yeah, I struggled with a lot of those same sorts of things like my entire life. I'm 42 years old now, and I would say just within the past like year and a half or so, for lack of better terms, I just kind of broke out of it. And it was after a decade worth of various types of inner work and introspection, whatever you want to call it. And of course, horses entered our lives in 2019. So like you mentioned before, I mean, they became like my guru and my guide on that path. But then other things started coming in. Like for me, like recently I've been really focused on yoga and meditation in that way. And I don't know. I'd like to get your opinion on, or your thoughts on, something like the more I live, the more I don't know, and the more I become comfortable in my unknowing. And it seems like when people talk about, even in science these days, it's talked about, like we live in a multidimensional universe and those sorts of things. And I used to think of that like really linear, like putting it in a box and like different layers. But I guess what I'm getting at, there's so many different ways to get to the one peak that we are all trying to achieve. And you mentioned it earlier, the joy and bliss. We could wrap that in the umbrella of what we call love. And it's like, I think, and just to play devil's advocate, I think we can get on this like kind of slippery slope where we're like, well, academia or the typical structures and confines of man try to put people in a box. But it seems like we do that in every way that we like approach things. So like I've seen people do that in the plant medicine world. I've seen people do that in yoga. I've seen people do that in Christianity. And it's like, if you're not following this particular path, then, oh, well, you're not doing it right. And for me, I'm like, in one moment in a meditation, I could be blasting off into another dimension, like far off into outer space and having a meeting with intergalactic beings. And in another meditation, I'm like, calm and collected next to a horse. And like, I don't know, it's like the best video game. No drugs involved. It's just like simply sitting there with my own breath and my own intentions. So shed some light on that for me, because I know you have some ideas in that way.
That was big. Shed light on what? You shedded all the light. I agree with you. I hear what you're saying. I 100% agree that the more I learn, the less I realize I know. And there's actually like a huge weight off my shoulders when I realize I actually don't know anything. Because like when things do present themselves and people come to me, I feel very comfortable saying I don't know. And then one thing I have noticed, because I've had a holistic health business where I used to do readings and I used to be more involved with helping people one-on-one.
And what I found was like, if people come to me for answers, I'm taking away their own opportunity of discovering how to find those answers within themselves. I'm not actually helping them. And so saying I don't know was actually such a big opportunity for me to stay present and open in the curiousness of what's unfolding. And then also allowing other people around me to find that for themselves, which to me is like the point of life. So I got really cozy and just realizing like I don't know anything. And then all of a sudden, like what you said, like your cup all of a sudden is empty in a good way. And then all this information can just come and enlighten you. And when you think you know things, I think that's when the cup feels full and like nothing can get in. So the world to me is a huge mystery, and I never feel stable in my knowing of what's going on ever. It'll change minute to minute for me. And the only thing that I know, that I think I know with 100% of certainty, is that this is definitely not the only dimension. And I am definitely currently unable to see everything that's going on. So in no way do I want to be making decisions based on my small mental acuity. I want to let the divine move through me and guide me. And I think that that's the most powerful way to move through the world.
And isn't it such that the horses are just so like, to me, they straddle between those two worlds, and they're just like perfectly. I know, like Alyssa, correct me, but like Kim McElroy, her artwork, doesn't it just like totally? So she's a past guest of ours. She's a artist, oil pastel, I think, and her artwork depicts that about the horses in such a fantastic way. Yeah, they just straddle those multi-dimensional areas. I wanted to point out a quote from the Yogi Sadhguru, and it just came up in my feed today, and it's really pertinent to what we're talking about. He says, "When you truly realize that you do not know, there will be no prejudice and no judgment in you. You will just become a being." And it's like, I couldn't say it any better than that, because the more I don't know, the more I'm just like in love with being alive and more comfortable with that. It's just so fantastic. And then the more things come my way that I just totally like throw up my hands, and I'm just like, I don't even understand that. I don't know. I'm perfectly okay with that. And it seems scientists are doing that. Like, I've heard so many scientists on different podcasts, and they're like, behind the scenes, that's all we say is that we don't know. Like, and we're just totally trying to uncover more of what we don't know. So
I horses are definitely like dimension walkers for sure. Like, the vision I had was that the creator made them from the star material and the earth material simultaneously. So they're able to move, like they're physically created by like earth, like crystals and clay and soil and plant matter. And then he took like star dust and made that on their mane and their tail and like the shimmer of their soul, so people would feel like when they see them running, which people do. Like, I was reading a post online today that said the something national forest is not going to remove the wild horses that are there. There's like 200 wild horses in some national forest, and of course, like, the control freaks come in and they're like, we have to remove the horses. And then the locals are all like, no. And they put this uproar around the situation. And then the national park agreed to allow the horses to stay. That all being said, there's this part of the interview where they're like, why do you like the horses? And everyone in the interview is like, we don't know, but we know we want them here. And so, like, humans, like, the soul is, there's something in them that draws everyone to horses, and everyone like looks at them in their majesty and when they're running and playing, and they're like, but they don't know why, right? They don't know why. You don't have to know why, but if you just sit with that,
resonance, if you just sit with that experience, like it'll just keep unfolding like a flower. And to me, that's the inward spiritual journey that we're all seeking, that can be initiated by a horse running by you. It's so minimal. It's so simple. It's so powerful. I love it.
Yeah, that resonates so much. It's like everything. And you have such a, like, your line of work with these medicine horses, as you refer to them as, it's like such a incredible thing to like listen to and feel, because these horses that aren't able to be ridden, whether it's by choice or physical ailment, or, you know, however, they're still a life, and they're still sovereign, and they're still just, they deserve a chance at life. And it's so incredibly beautiful and such an honor to have you here talking about them and your story and journey as it relates to them. It's powerful.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
By the way, how is Chico doing?
So yesterday, I don't know if the vet texted, but Sunday, the vet did a really intensive surgery on him, and they extracted a tooth, and they opened up another part of his head and did another cavity flush. So that was the major surgery. And then today he's supposed to get another opening and flush, and then they're going to check on, like the hole where they extracted the tooth. And then the vet said after today, we'll know when he can go home. So I'm just kind of sitting on like pins and needles. He's real upset when he gets home. This is the second time he's had to go down and get these multiple surgeries and treatments. And I just know that for him, like this morning, I felt really angry for him. I was like, he just needs to stop being handled in that way. I could feel that he's totally over being haltered, drugged, and then have his face opened. It's like, it's enough already. And I'm not mad at the vet, but that's how I was feeling. I was like, it's enough already. Like, stop with the treatments. And then I'm like, yeah, okay. And you need them, and we'll get through it, and we can do hard things. Like, it's all okay. But this is not an easy process for any horse, let alone a horse as sensitive as him. So when he gets home, he's real upset for like 2 weeks. And then when he kind of gets over being forced into surgeries, he opens back up like a flower. So I know he's going to be okay. We are just in a hard moment right now.
Okay. Well, you're in our thoughts and our prayers and our, we're thinking about you and him, and we're hoping for a safe, strong recovery.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you? And do you have any, do you do retreats on your property, or what sort of things do you want to give a shout out to about your work?
So starwalkerranch.com, that's my ranch. And we have a YouTube channel. So if you want to watch me, I'm currently training Nola to ride, so I have videos on that. And then I have horse and earth meditations, and we have chickens in a greenhouse. So it's all that footage of what's going on here. And then whitefoxnectars.com, that's my herbal remedy line. So if anyone wants to buy medicine from me, that's where you can get medicine. I have my personal website, which is my name, scarletravin.com. And then I have psilocybinformulations.com. I have a lot of stuff out there right now.
Yeah, and we'll definitely post links to all your websites and social media and all that kind of stuff in the show notes. And it's been a great conversation. I know there's so much with every one of our guests that we could just dive more and more into. So maybe we have you on again.
Maybe when the book's ready and we can see how that book unfolds, because there's going to be I hope you guys write a story
But and also anyone listening, like if you've had a spiritual experience with a horse that's really touched your soul, I am looking for 25 testimonials to include in the book. So it's not just my voice, but it's a more like global voice. People can see that, oh, it's not just Scarlet, like all these other people, or it's happening to everyone.
Yeah, well,
So
I'll definitely add one for you. And then I don't know if you've heard of the Rescued Hearts documentary that's coming out by Dana and Chrisanna. They're the producers. We'll give you information on that as well. They might have some good contacts for you.
That would be great. Yeah, I want to
And
produce
a shout out to that documentary because it should be coming out here pretty soon.
What's it called again? I want to watch it.
It's called Rescued Hearts. So people can find that at rescuedheartsfilm.com.
Oh, how exciting.
Thank you so much again for joining us. It's been such a fun conversation.
Yeah. Thank you guys too for having me. I loved it.